Narcissism and schizophrenia, a byproduct of nihilism, where nihilism I've defined as different from the conventional definition of nihilism, which is itself part of the nihilistic paradigm. We will focus on Americanism as the most current secular form of nihilism. How does Americanism cultivate schizophrenia and narcissism? First of all, it turns the mind against the body. The mind wants to reject the body, and by body I mean past made present, because as I've said, the body is the past made present and interpreted as the apparent, as the phenomenon. So the body wants to liberate itself from the body, to reinvent itself. This is the American dream, the self-made man. So the mind is cast in the role of God creator, and the body is cast in the role of the devil, the Satan that restricts the mind's will. So the body must be transcended, must be overcome, must be forgotten, must be made into a superficial illusion, something that can be cast aside and recreated as if out of nothing. And this creates a mind-body dissonance. The mind, consciousness, the ego in other words, begins to believe that the body is holding it back. And the body is of course a constant reminder of the past that is constantly manifesting as presence. It is a constant reminder of everything the mind wants to overcome, wants to reject, wants to liberate itself from. And if it manages to convince itself of this linguistically, that is, if it manages to self-deceive itself, it enters into a stage of limbo, of being without a grounding. So it becomes desperate for a new identity, a new grounding. And this is why nihilism is so useful to the system, because then the system enters to offer this mind in limbo, this liberated mind, a new definition, which is always in line with the systemic interests. And of course the mind is so desperate that it grasps onto it. This is what fashion does, this is what pop culture does. It offers alternate identities to individuals that have lost all sense of self, that have lost all sense of their ancestry. And of course the American dream is this liberation from the past. It originally was a liberation from European socioeconomic hierarchies, but it eventually became a liberation from the very idea of the physical, the entire past, the idea that man can just go to the United States and reinvent himself. And this is the source of transsexuality, this idea that is rooted in Abrahamism, of course, in Judaism, in Christianity, in Islam. This idea that the mind is other than the body, that the mind is trapped by the body, it's imprisoned by it. And this is why moderns, they consider the body an illusion. That's what they claim. It's illusion, or at least it's superficial. It's irrelevant to them. That's what they wish. And they try to convince themselves of this. And this is a form of schizophrenia. The mind turning against itself, its own body. And once it's achieved this feat, this psychologically based self-deception, it finds itself desperate for a new grounding. So it inflates itself. It inflates the ego. The ego becomes like a god, a creator god, a creator of worlds, the creator of the self. So the ego becomes God itself. And since many moderns don't believe that consciousness is an emergent quality of the brain, they believe that their consciousness comes from somewhere other, somewhere outside, from the beyond, from some metaphysical plane. And they are just the conduit, the transmitter, the antenna. So moderns, they declare the body to be insignificant, an illusion, irrelevant, and then in their desperation they overcompensate and inflate their ego. That's why they become narcissistic. And of course some of them eventually become so disillusioned, they see how vacuous this is. They realize that they've fooled themselves, that they've tricked themselves, that they've deceived themselves, and they assume that everybody does this. They don't try to change themselves, their positions, their worldview, but instead they declare all worldviews to be equally vacuous, equally self-deceiving. This is why they become cynical. This is the next stage for a few. So you become antagonistic towards the body, and then you overcompensate by overinflating the ego, thinking of yourself as some sort of god or god-like representation on the earth, rejecting all earthly authorities in the process. And then some become cynical when they either consciously or unconsciously realize what they how they deceive themselves, how they've tricked themselves. Instead of correcting themselves, instead of being able to judge where they made a mistake, instead they do the easiest thing. They declare everything to be a deception, everything to be an illusion. So they start laughing at everything. They start laughing at all ideologies, all worldviews, all earthly authorities. For them it's all or nothing. Either everything is like this or everything is like that. There's no middle ground, there's no nuance, because they've lost trust in their own judgment. They've lost trust in their own perceptions. And instead of admitting that this is a personal thing, they want to save face, so they declare that this is a universal thing, that everybody is like this, even if they don't know it, that everybody's deceiving themselves like they've done, that everybody's judgment is bad, so that they can protect their ego from the implications, because they want to believe that if they're not genius, if they're not godlike, they are at least average, they are at least mediocre, or they're at least normal.